Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to TOP's Wellness Workshop Series. We are glad you're joining us today. Hope everyone is doing well today. My name is John Mullinex, and I serve as the Program Director of Intake, Volunteers, and Counseling Programs here at Tuscaloosa's One Place. I'm also a licensed professional counselor in the state of Alabama. I will be serving as today's moderator, helping introduce the workshop, guide our Q&A at the end, and close us out. These workshops are designed to provide education, encouragement, practical tools related to mental health, wellness, relationships, stress, coping, and everyday life challenges. Our goal is to make mental health information accessible, reduce stigma, and help individuals and families feel more informed and supported. The series is currently being offered weekly as we continue to grow and refine our program. Today's week 3 of our wellness workshop series, and today's topic is healthy versus unhealthy coping skills. This is an important topic because everyone uses coping skills in some form, whether you realize it or not. Some coping skills help us manage stress, regulate emotions, and move us through difficult situations in a healthy way. Others may provide short-term relief, but create more problems over time. Few quick notes before we begin. Viewers will remain anonymous to other participants during the webinar. Your face and name will not be made public to other viewers, and we ask everyone to respect the privacy of those participating. You are welcome to submit questions during the presentation using the Zoom Q&A feature. We will hold those questions until the end and answer as many as we can during our wrap-up Q&A. This workshop is educational, is not a substitute for therapy, diagnosis, crisis intervention, or medical advice. We always encourage everyone to avoid sharing highly personal or identifying information in submitted questions. Today's presentation will be led by Maggie along with Rebecca, one of our fabulous top interns. I will return at the end to help moderate questions and close us out. With that, I'll turn it over to Maggie and Rebecca.
Hi there. I'm going to share my screen real quick. And then let me hit the present button. All right. So, hi, I'm Maggie. I work as the Success Program at the High School Counseling Success Program Assistant. And this is Rebecca. She's one of our interns. She was in our last week's video, and she was the co-host for last week. But now she's getting to present with me today. And yeah, today's topic is about healthy versus unhealthy coping skills. And once again, this is Tuscaloosa One Place, and it's week 3.
All right, let's go over a little bit of our agenda for today. We're going to have the introduction, which we kind of already had, disclaimer, and then we're going to talk about the definition of coping skills. We'll have a little poll question so you guys can interact with us. We're going to talk about problem-focused coping skills and then emotion-focused coping skills, types of coping skills, unhealthy ones as well, and then why people might use unhealthy coping skills. Recognizing when coping is harmful, and then a step-by-step way to change to more healthy coping skills. And then a script for you to be able to talk to your friends about why you're changing. And then we'll close everything down and have a Q&A session at the end. And then just to introduce Wellness Workshop and TOP again, wellness workshops are designed to support mental health and community well-being. Each session offers practical insights, helpful resources, and meaningful conversation in a supportive environment. And then Tuscaloosa One Place is a family resource center in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, that serves as a single hub for families to access a wide range of programs and services aimed at strengthening families, promoting self-sufficiency, and preventing child abuse and neglect.
And here's a little disclaimer. The information shared during this webinar is for educational and informational purposes only. It's not intended to replace actual therapy or going to counseling sessions with a licensed therapist. But we're just providing some psychoeducation material today. And participation in this webinar does not create a therapist-client or counselor-client relationship with top or any presenters. And also, some topics that we talk about might be triggering for some people or bring back any bad memories. So, if you're experiencing any distress or it's causing stress in your life, listening to the wellness workshop, it's okay to pause and exit at any time that you'd like. And to know that it's always okay to seek support. If it's an actual crisis, please call 911 or the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. But with that being said, let's continue. All right, so what are coping skills? A healthy coping skill is a set of strategies that you consistently use to manage your everyday stress, and it's supposed to help you reduce your overall stress without creating any new problems. An example of a healthy coping skill is kind of like the picture that right there. Art, especially painting, is a wonderful outlet. I love art. I actually got my minor in studio art, and while studying art in college, it actually was a coping skill while I was in the class. So, unhealthy coping skills are behaviors or strategies that people use to manage stress and emotional distress, and it provides a temporary relief, but ultimately can create more problems in your life over time. All right, so now I'm going to try to launch our first poll. It's going to be a question that is going to pop up on your screen. So let me see if I can launch it. All right. Just give me one moment. All right, and Rebecca is going to read aloud what the question is.
So this is a situation and you choose what you would do at the end of the situation. So let's say you get a flat tire on your way to work. After arriving, you spend the entire day in back-to-back meetings and are unable to take a lunch break. At the end of the day, your boss tells you they need to meet with you first thing tomorrow morning, but does not explain why, and they appear upset. On your drive home, you encounter 2 hours of heavy traffic before finally arriving home. So at the end of this long day, what do you do to cope? Do you cry and rant to your friend on the phone, have a couple glasses of wine and maybe a smoke break, watch 5 long episodes of your favorite TV show, DoorDash a nourishing comfort meal and cuddle up with a blanket on the couch, or take a bubble bath and rehearse in your head reassuring affirmations? You can go ahead and vote.
Yep. And there's no right or wrong answer to this question. All of these are different types of coping skills, but there's no right or wrong question. And it should all be anonymous. All right, I'm going to give maybe like 30 more seconds, possibly. I think for me, I can't vote in this because we're actually presenting, but for me, I probably would choose the bubble bath one because I love bubble baths. That's my big thing for me. So let's end it. I think everyone has had a chance to, and I'm going to share results. And it looks like
Everybody wants to eat a nourishing meal and cuddle up with a blanket.
yeah, that's funny. Yeah, honestly, I would do that too. So let's go back to the actual PowerPoint now. Just give me one moment. I'm gonna reshare my screen. Okay. So let's talk about types of coping strategies right now. And oh, sorry, is this my slide? Yes. Okay. So, problem-focused coping targets the source of stress itself. You make a plan, take action, or change something about the situation. This strategy works best when you have some control over the situation. There's another type of coping strategy called emotion-focused coping, and they tend to be more useful when you can't change the circumstances going on in your life. Some examples of that might be grieving a loss or adjusting to a new diagnosis in your life. So what's kind of like, how can we use problem-focused coping in our everyday lives? An example of this would be making an immediate safety plan. So if you notice that your emotions are feeling overwhelming, or you feel that you might be at risk, or you know you're having a lot of intense stress or circumstances that are happening in your life at this moment, it might be good to go ahead and create like an actual safety plan for you. And a safety plan doesn't have to be, super intense or anything like that. But it could just be saying that you're going to leave the triggering environment. You might step out of the room for a second. Maybe putting distance between yourself or anything that could cause hurt to yourself. Calling your friend. That might be a good way to have a problem-focused coping strategy. And going somewhere where you won't be alone. Like maybe going to a coffee shop or a local library, something like that. What do you think about problem-focused coping skills? Have you ever used one, Rebecca?
I don't know that I've even thought super deeply about it, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely I've made a plan in my head where I'm like, if they ask me this question that I know I'm not mentally prepared to answer
Mm-hmm.
today, I'm just gonna like distract them and leave and not
Mm-hmm.
talk to them about it because yeah, there's no reason to put yourself in a situation where you feel super overwhelmed when
Mm-hmm.
you can find a very safe and polite exit
Yeah.
and go ahead and give yourself a moment to think about things in a more collected and calm environment. I
Yeah.
don't think you have to stress yourself out for the benefit of other people.
I completely agree. Something I also like to do too is sometimes if I'm really stressed out, like after work or coming from a social time, sometimes I will know that I'm going to be stressed out after work, and I'll go ahead and turn my phone on Do Not Disturb when I get home and just place my phone in another room. So that's kind of like targeting the problem. So the problem is my phone is blowing up. I'm tired of talking to people right now and I just need to be alone. So I'm gonna put my phone to the side. But emotion focused coping. So what's the difference between emotion focused coping and problem focused coping? So sometimes you might not be able to make a plan in the moment to target that specific problem. There's a lot of times where things happen in our lives and we can't control it at all. Kind of like that example before, like you getting a flat tire or you're getting stuck in 2 hours of heavy traffic. You can't plan that and you can't escape that situation.
Right.
So an emotion focused coping strategy, let's say for that example, would be maybe listening to music to calm yourself down. Like, okay, I'm stuck in a 2 hour traffic. Let me just put on my favorite song and just jam out and scream and if you like rock music, maybe something like that. I like to, whenever I'm super stressed, go to my freezer and grab a few ice cubes and hold them in my hands. And that helps me to just kind of breathe and feel that temperature change in my hands. What do you do anything for like emotion focused coping in your life?
Yeah, I think sometimes just reframing the thought that comes to my head when something
Yeah.
terrible happens, like your tired pops and you're like, "Ugh, I can't believe I'm so stupid. How could I
Mm-hmm.
let this happen?" And it's like, no, this is completely out of your control. So you need to reframe it as bad things happen sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I know I can get through this. Like you're giving yourself the grace that something has happened, but then you're also talking yourself up and
Mm-hmm.
building yourself esteem up a little bit by saying, I know I can manage this situation.
Yeah.
This is not insurmountable. We can
Mm-hmm.
get through this.
I completely agree, 100%. And so here's the next slide. And it is types of coping strategies continued.
Okay. So the way problem-focused coping is like the overall process of trying to manage or solve the source of the stress. So then active coping is a specific part of that process where you take direct action to address the problem instead of avoiding it.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of have some under there where it's like planning, positive reframing, acceptance, seeking emotional and practical support. These are some of the steps that you can take in it. And another word for positive reframing is cognitive reappraisal. You're just like thinking about the problem instead of just kind of letting it pass you by and you're having an emotional response. You're kind of slowing down to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, cognitive reappraisals can work because negative emotions are driven largely by how you interpret the events,
Mm-hmm.
not by the event themselves. So, when you shift the interpretation by saying instead, the tire popped, it's all my fault, I can't deal with this, by telling yourself, no, I
Hmm.
know I've done hard things before, I can fix this now.
Hmm.
Then you're taking the initial negative emotional response and you're taking control of it a little bit and reframing it. So let's go over another example. So you're texting someone that you really care about, and then all of a sudden they stop answering you
Ooh.
for hours. I know that that's always like gut-wrenching because you're
Hmm.
thinking, did I say something wrong? Are they
Hmm.
upset with me? They're abandoning me. They're never going to text me back, and I
Hmm.
can't handle this.
Hmm.
So then you reframe, slow down, and you say, I don't know why they haven't responded to me, but there could be a lot of reasons. And that my fear is not filling in the blanks, but that doesn't, my fear is filling in the blanks for me, but that doesn't make it the facts.
Hmm.
I'm not supposed to let my fear interpret what my friend is trying to say to me.
Yeah. And I like how that kind of like went along with the emotion-based coping, because all these coping strategies, they might have different categories, but you can use them interchangeably.
Right.
And so you kind of combined the emotion-based coping with this positive reframing. And so I think that's really cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and you're just trying to shift your body from that fight or flight panic.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're just going to the worst case scenario when you're allowing your fears to speak into your life
Mm-hmm.
like that. You need to have a more reasonable conclusion is obvious, honestly, usually the one that's more likely
Mm-hmm.
and it's less stressful. So it's a but double better than the other
Yeah, and
one.
it's also like not, some people think that you have to force being positive to have that different reframing in your mind, but it really isn't like forced positivity. It's allowing you to see the situation for what it is. I have two flat tires. I'm in a really stressful situation. Life sucks right now. But you can use that positive reframing to be like what you were saying, like this is just a hard time in my life. It's not forever. I'm gonna get this fixed and it's gonna be okay.
Right.
So there's a few more types of coping strategies. This one is proactive coping, and it's the practice of anticipating future stressors and preparing for them before they arrive. I actually didn't know the name for this type of coping skill before doing some research, but now that I know the definition to this type of coping strategy, I actually see it a lot in my life. But some other examples are keeping a regular sleep schedule, having to set boundaries before going to a stressful situation or talking to a person that you might have a strained relationship with. And something that I actually thought about before doing this presentation and preparing for it is an example in my own life, and you might agree with this or have some sort of commonality with me because Rebecca's actually married now. I'm engaged right now. So sometimes I have a healthy, wonderful relationship with my fiance, but like every normal relationship, we do argue sometimes. And we've only had a few handful of hard arguments that were really hard in my life. But it's easy for me to think like once we have a big argument and we finally make up, in my head, I'm like, okay, we're never going to have this type of argument again. Like, we got through it. It's fine. We're never going to fight about this topic again. Well, that's just not realistic at all because I plan to be married to this person for the rest of my life. And that means, like, most likely in 10 years, we're probably, or even a year from now, we're probably going to have the same argument about the same thing. And arguing is normal, even in healthy relationships. But I think I'm having to start learning the proactive coping of anticipating that, we might not fight every day, but we're probably going to fight about this topic a year from now or longer. And so coming up with those strategies to help yourself during that stressor, during that argument. But you're married now, so what do you think about
I
that?
definitely agree that it's good not only for yourself, but also for your relationships. And this can be also your relationship with your parents, with your friends, with
Hmm.
your boss, coworkers. It's good to go ahead and have a proactive view of managing stress because
Hmm.
stress is part of life. We're just going to encounter it. There's no avoiding it. So, by having a little game plan and thinking about ways to minimize the stress, you're helping yourself have a better life, a healthier life, and you're helping yourself in your relationships to have better quality relationships with those people in your life. And
Mm-hmm.
it can help reduce, your symptoms of depression or feeling like everything's overwhelming. I can't handle this. By having a game plan already before something happens, you feel more prepared and like you
Mm-hmm.
can do this.
I completely agree. All right. Oh, and here are some healthy problem-focused and active coping skills examples. We kind of already talked about this, so I'll go through this pretty fast. But asking for support from a friend, therapist, counselor, creating a to-do list. If you know that you're bad at putting things off, go ahead and writing that to-do list for the day. Healthy boundaries, producing a game plan to manage your time better, walk away if possible, and go to the bathroom at work, go outside if your home life is stressful, trying to change the scenery, making a budget for the week or making a budget for the day. Sometimes making a budget longer out is harder than just looking at making a budget for the day.
Absolutely. And a lot of those strategies are like the proactive ones that we just talked
Mm-hmm.
about too. You're kind of planning ahead of time
Mm-hmm.
what you're going to do so that you don't get yourself in a pickle.
Yes.
Um, and then these are the more emotion focused coping skills. Again, we kind of touched on this, but I'd like to go a little bit more in depth because these are ones that a lot of people call like self-care now,
Yeah.
but it is really important. It's not just a TikTok trend
Yeah.
that's kind of like
Really.
flippant. This can really impact your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So, some examples like taking care of yourself, something as simple as a shower
Yes.
can make you feel a whole lot different
Yep.
afterwards, or painting your nails, or doing something else that makes you feel good about yourself. Engaging in a hobby, finding joy in life can help reduce, once again, those
Mm-hmm.
symptoms of depression where you feel like nothing is worthwhile. Go do something that you know you enjoy, and
Mm-hmm.
then you will feel better about life in general, not just while you're doing that one little activity.
Yeah.
Exercise. Doing just a little walk around the park can help boost your dopamine, your serotonin, helps kickstart your mind thinking about problems too. Focus on one task at a time. This can help chunk the hard parts of your day into manageable bite-sized pieces.
I
Instead
like
of
that one.
looking at the overall thing that's too
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming, break it down into something you can do just for the next hour. What can you do to help yourself? Practice mindfulness. This is like meditating,
Mm-hmm.
journaling, praying, things that help you kind of just think about your problem in a different way and maybe try and have a little more gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And then relaxation strategies, breathing exercises, progressive muscle relaxation. That's just clenching all your muscles really hard and then relaxing. You'll be
Mm-hmm.
surprised how much even just that one little thing can really make a
Mm-hmm.
difference.
Yep.
So now that we've covered some healthy coping strategies, let's flip the script, go to unhealthy coping strategies. So examples of some unhealthy things can be reliance on drugs or alcohol, overeating or undereating, or sleeping too much or sleeping too little. Perpetual busyness to distract yourself. This can be kind of like doom scrolling
Yes.
on the internet.
Yes.
That's probably one that a lot of us
With
do.
with TikTok and Instagram.
Absolutely. And toxic venting to others. This is not just, I need to vent for just a one little time, but repeated,
Yes.
revisiting the same problem and not really making progress towards it.
Mm-hmm.
Or overspending. All of these things are not a weakness. You're not weak because you did those things. You were trying to survive and trying to find a way to
Mm-hmm.
cope. And you just grabbed the first thing that seemed reasonable, which is, I think all of us do. That's totally a
Mm-hmm.
reasonable thing to do. But understanding the reasons why
Mm-hmm.
these things happen and why they're not helpful can help reduce the shame and open the door to changing your life and changing how you cope with things.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't realize like you might be doing an unhealthy coping skill until later on. And like you said, like this coping strategy of maybe overeating too much or venting too much to people It helped you survive, like you said, but it ultimately caused more problems in the end. And I think that's a good way to look at it and realize, oh, what's unhealthy.
Exactly. I think a lot of them are the extreme of
Hmm.
something that could have been a little bit helpful,
Yeah.
and then we took it a little too far,
Yeah.
and now it's becoming a problem.
Hmm. But yeah, we already kind of talked about this, but why do people turn to unhealthy coping things like that? Immediate relief. We just want rid of the problem. We want it gone. And so, what can we do to just get relief from this problem, even if the problem is out of our control? Learn patterns. When we are growing up, the biggest example we have in our lives is our parents or our caregivers or our teachers. And so a lot of people don't realize how much younger kids and even teenagers watch and look up to adults in their lives. And so learning and seeing how other people react, that can lead to doing the same pattern of unhealthy coping skill that your parent or your teacher or caregiver might have done. Not having a lack of skills, kind of going along with the learned patterns. If your parents never taught you to take care of yourself physically, like self-care, like taking a shower, like they didn't prioritize that in your life. You don't know how to do that when you get older. You have to learn it yourself. And so that lack of skills, that goes along with like biological reinforcement. Some people might actually have more or less dopamine and serotonin in their brain, and that can lead to turning to unhealthy coping skills, avoidance of pain that goes with the immediate relief. But it's important, like we said, to remember that the coping skills they were developed for survival, especially in times of trauma or chronic stress. But they do deserve compassion, and um, and to look at it through a view in a lens of that you're not a failure. You might just be making not the best choices in your life.
Absolutely. So, some common unhealthy coping mechanisms and their consequences. So, let's talk about compulsive behaviors and
Hmm.
addictions. And this doesn't have to just be drugs or
Hmm.
alcohol, things like shopping or gambling or inappropriate sexual conduct. Those things can
Hmm.
things that are regular, like shopping, can be normal at a small amount, and then we
Hmm.
go way too far, then it becomes unhealthy and it's harmful. The
Hmm.
real problem is when it becomes harmful and unhelpful to you
Hmm.
and what you're trying to do with that behavior.
Hmm.
Um, and it can lead to other stressors that then exacerbate the
Hmm.
cycle because if you're shopping or gambling or whatever because you're stressed about finances, then continually spending money in unhealthy ways is going to put you in a worse financial
Yeah.
situation. And so something that could have been fine is now a little bit out of control and hurting you. And ultimately, you want to be emotionally and mentally well,
Hmm.
and it starts with some change.
Yeah.
Um, Also, overworking and hustle culture. Sometimes people overwork themselves just so that they don't have to go home and think about their
Hmm.
feelings, which is a totally natural thing to do, is to try and avoid the painful
Hmm.
situation. But even though achievement at work might be rewarding in the short term,
Hmm.
you may suffer relationships and your life may suffer. You may end up getting fired or let go from that job through no fault of your own. And then that thing that you found so much meaning and identity in
Hmm.
is now gone. Now, how are you going to cope?
Hmm.
Things like that can really affect your mental well-being.
Yeah. And something that I'm having to learn now too is like living in that constant state of stress and using those unhealthy coping strategies, even if you don't realize it. Um, like it can really lead to not just like mental health effects, but like physical health effects.
Oh, absolutely.
And like now I'm dealing with shoulder pain a lot in my life and things like that. And that's from holding in that stress all those years. Whereas if I had just noticed it earlier on or um, if I had known about these coping skills earlier on, I could have prioritized more yoga or more not as aggressive physical workouts as I used to do. Um, and that's not necessarily a bad coping skill or you know but sometimes you need to reprioritize your life so you don't end up with as bad of health effects later on.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and let's talk about how to recognize when coping is harmful. And we already talked about this, but does the behavior reduce pain temporarily but cause more problems later? Not just for yourself, but for others. Do you hide the behavior from your loved ones or feel guilty about it? Has the behavior interfered with work, school, or relationships? And have you tried to stop and found yourself unable to? Sometimes you might not realize that a coping skill is hurting you, but it might be
Mm.
hurting someone you're really close to around you. And that's just as bad as if it was directly hurting you. Um, let's take shopping for an example. You might be going shopping a lot and you got a TJ Maxx credit card and you're having a great time and you're going out and you're shopping and like that's why I haven't gotten the TJ Maxx credit card is because I don't want to keep going shopping and things like that. Um, but that might be good to you, but you come home and like that credit card bill doesn't just go to you, it goes to whoever your partner is, or it might go to your family members, or it might go on to your kids one day. So recognizing like even if the behavior might not be hurting you in the moment, it could be hurting other people, and that's not good either.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we talked about all of these healthy versus unhealthy things. What do we do to change if we
Mhm.
want to change an unhealthy habit?
Mhm.
Okay, step one is you have to be aware of what's going on. And this is probably the hardest part
Mhm.
because this is the part where if you just don't know, then how are you supposed to know?
Yeah.
This can be something that you can kind of ask somebody you really trust. You have to really trust them and know that they're honest and they want the best for you. But maybe ask somebody else or go see a professional to help notice the triggers and patterns and figure out what is unhelpful to you
Mhm.
anymore. But you can also do this on your own. Journaling is a great way to start. Go ahead and start thinking about what habit do I want to change, and then journal what happened right before you did it. So with the shopping thing,
Mhm.
are you stressed at work? And so every time your boss yells at you, you go to TJ Maxx.
Mhm.
Well, we need to know what's causing the spending. So you
Mhm.
need to realize what happens right before you do the habit that you'd like to
Yeah.
change. And then step two, self-compassion. This part's also really hard because it's easy for us to feel negatively about ourselves and think that we should be perfect or we should have known better.
Yeah,
But that's just
definitely.
not always true. And you would extend more grace to your friends
Mhm.
than probably we are prone to extend to ourselves. So talk to yourself like you'd talk to your best friend. We kind of talked about that last week.
Yeah.
You should talk to yourself like somebody you love. And reframe it a little bit too. Talk about how this skill helped you for a short time, or you at least it tried to help you, but
Mhm.
maybe it's gone too far, or now you are realizing that it's unhelpful. You are doing the best you can, and you're going to learn how to change it now.
Yeah.
Step three, let's identify what the behavior was trying to do. What were we trying to get the result?
Hmm.
Understanding the function allows you to select healthier behaviors that can meet that same need that you were missing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Step four, create a quit plan with replacement strategies because you have a need, like we just said, something that you want out of that unhelpful behavior. So let's find something that can replace it so that'll make it easier to quit.
And I think like shopping, I know whenever I've overspent before in the past, it was a comfort thing of like an immediate gratification. So what can
Mhm.
we do to get an immediate gratification that's not going to have a harmful impact? Mhm.
Absolutely. And it's just being more intentional
Yeah.
about your actions,
Hmm.
analyzing them a little bit, and not just letting automatic behaviors run wild.
Yeah, definitely.
Step five. So we're going to use some cognitive behavioral strategies. Fancy term that just means we're going to think about our behaviors a little bit more intentionally.
Yep.
So thought records, this is a way that we can track the automatic thoughts and the urges that we have, and then challenge them with some evidence. So if we're shopping because we're stressed, what does the shopping do for me? What are
Hmm.
some ways that I can fulfill this need without the shopping? And then does the shopping even actually do anything beneficial for me, or is it just my first thought process. So you're just kind of finding evidence for and against using those unhealthy strategies so that you can logically build a plan that makes sense for you.
Yeah, definitely.
You can also try and schedule positive, meaningful activities that reduce some idle time. So if you were just doing it out of boredom
Yeah.
and not because you were stressed necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
you might just need to replace time that you're typically bored with something that's fulfilling, spending
Mm-hmm.
time with a friend or having that bubble bath, something that's good for you and won't add to your stress. And then distress tolerance is step 6. This is a dialectical behavioral therapy thing. So it's DBT, it's just a fancy therapeutic term that just means we're going to learn how to tolerate strong emotions without acting on an impulse.
Yep.
So, some ways to do this, I don't know if you've done this before, but self-soothing with the five senses.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of look around the room. What are 5 things I can see,
Mm-hmm.
4 things I can touch, 3 things I can smell? Like you just keep going down the list and it helps you to calm down. And you're still kind of sitting with that emotion in a
Mm-hmm.
way, but you're not allowing it to make you behave in a certain way.
And you can do it like in public and stuff, which I think is really cool too. That's what I've done.
That's such a great point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, if you're in the middle of the crisis or the
Mm-hmm.
stressor, you're not obviously doing a therapy technique.
Yeah.
Like some of them can be a little too obvious. This one's a little covert,
Mm-hmm.
easier to do. Step 8. So we need to develop those healthy replacement skills. So this is where we're choosing what we
Mm-hmm.
need to do. So if your goal for the behavior you want to change, if it was to numb yourself, maybe you replace it with something that is more creative. That way you're not really numbing yourself, but you're not also feeding into the stress.
Mm-hmm.
So, or you could do a little bit of exercise, something that kind of takes your mind off of it, but is good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're trying to escape, you might do a little walk or a little meditation,
Mm-hmm.
something different that allows you to escape that emotion for a moment, but is actually fueling your mental
Mm-hmm.
well-being. Connection is another good one. If you were shopping just because you and your friend like to shop together, but now it's gone out of
Mm-hmm.
control. Why don't you spend your time with your friend doing something else that's more productive or at
Mm-hmm.
least not harmful?
Yeah.
And then, um, last one, using, oh, sorry, actually,
Two more
step
ones.
9, using technology to support change. So you can, use the phone to be able to connect with your friends. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ways you can use technology to help you. Um, you just don't want it to become too much of a crutch. So use that
Yeah.
one with just a little bit of
And
discretion.
there's some like good websites you can look at, like if you're like, well, I don't know what replacement skill to like, I want to stop smoking cigarettes, but I don't know what replacement skill to use that. Like we have the fanciest thing there is, a phone, and you can look it up. Like you can get support faster nowadays than you might have been had to in the past.
Right. Absolutely. And you'd be able to see a therapist over Zoom. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're somewhere hard to reach, or if you just can't get out of the house that much, you can use those things to connect to a professional who can help you.
Mm-hmm.
And then step 10, some practical techniques. We're about to go over a script together,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe some routines or tools you can use is using like your imagination is a big one. Just imagine the urge to do the unhealthy behavior
Mm-hmm.
is just a wave and you're watching it crash, but it's not dragging you out to sea. You're watching
Mm-hmm.
it and you're letting the urge hit you and then recede. And every time it hits you, you're letting it happen. You're not judging yourself for having the urge.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a failure or
Mm-hmm.
anything for having that urge, but you're watching it go back out to sea and you're not going out with it.
Yeah, that's a really good example. I like that one a lot. Um, but yeah, so you might get to a point where you want to ask for help. Maybe you don't want to actually go see an actual therapist or counselor, but You might just want to tell somebody that you live with, because who sees you probably at your best and your worst moments? The person you're around the most, and most of the time, that's the person that you live with.
Absolutely.
So here's like an example of a shareable script that you can share to your friends and family. I'm working on changing a coping behavior that helped me survive, but now causes problems. We can talk about, let's say, the shopping thing. So I'm trying to change my shopping habits. It used to make me feel better. I would have fun with my friends and we'd go out, but now it's gotten out of control because I'm in so much credit card debt. You can say I might be more irritable right now because I want to go do the thing I used to do. But it helps when you listen to me without judgment and you possibly please check in on me. If I slip up, support and patience help guide me back on track. And one thing to remember is relapse is a big part of recovery. And it's normal to relapse and to not judge yourself, but to continually pick yourself back up after you might have relapsed. And having that safety plan and that go-to plan, the proactive coping of knowing like who you can call when you might have relapsed or messed up is a good thing to do for your safety and also for your mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
unhealthy coping strategies are understandable responses to pain. We
Mm-hmm.
all do things in the moment when painful things or stressful things occur that maybe later we realize, okay, that wasn't the most helpful, but
Yeah.
you did it to survive. You did what you needed to do in that moment and you did the best you could in that moment. But we're all trying to grow in our lifetime, do better each year. So this is a great way to re-examine some things in the past that you tried and now you're realizing, oh, that wasn't as helpful as it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
And replacing these things takes a lot of patience with yourself and some planning, but please be compassionate to yourself as you go through this process. It is very reasonable and expected to have setbacks.
And it can be really stressful at times just coming up with those new coping skills. Like you're already dealing with a stressor, but then it's going to be stressful coming up with that new coping skill. But it's better to deal with the stress of coming up with a new coping skill than the stress of staying in that crisis state all your life. That's what I tell myself whenever I'm struggling to create a new coping skill.
No, that's an excellent point because, yeah, it's emotionally draining,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a worthwhile investment into your
Mm-hmm.
future. Things don't get better unless we do change and at least
Yeah.
try something new. Even if that first try doesn't quite work, maybe try something different.
Yeah, exactly. And so now we're going into the Q&A and discussion topic questions, but here is the reference page just so y'all can see it. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And so thank you. Here you go, John.
All right. Thank you, Maggie and Rebecca, for today's presentation. A lot of great information. We live in such a fast world. We really need to develop those healthy coping skills, and y'all provided some good information on how we can get there. So we're going to move into the Q&A portion. As a reminder, viewers are anonymous to other participants, and names and faces are not being made public. We'll answer questions in a general educational way, so please avoid including personal details that could identify you or someone else. We will answer as many questions as we can get to. I'll begin by reading through some of the questions that were submitted during the presentation. Okay, so we have one here. What do I do if I have triggers at work and I feel like I can't escape it? Okay, so that's a good question. So we all have, we all have stress at work, and it's going to be difficult to escape every little stress at work. And some of those stresses may trigger things within ourselves that may induce more stress or maybe even some bad habits, coping skills, that kind of thing. So So yeah, so I guess the good thing is to differentiate what you can control at work. What are some things that you can do? And a lot of those do involve those healthy coping skills, such as taking that 5 minute walk or deep breathing, exercise, as I said, going for that walk. And then, you have your unhealthy skills where you may come home and have a drink, and a drink every now and then is not a bad thing, but overeating, isolating, those kinds of things. I think it's a good place to kind of take a pause and just, as I said, understand what's in your control. And talking with a friend is a good way to do it, to to get through some of those triggers that come up. And of course, we always recommend, therapy. If things become too intense or your triggers lead to very unhealthy habits, such as overeating, overspending, drinking in excess, those kinds of things. Rebecca and Maggie, what are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah.
Um, I would say if you have a safe workplace where maybe you can talk to your boss or
Mhm.
someone who has control over the situation, maybe you can ask if there's any accommodations they can give you if there's something triggering at work. Like,
Mhm.
say you're a bartender and now you've realized you have a problem with drinking too much, you're around alcohol all the time. Is there something your boss can do to support you? Can
Mhm.
they just at least check up on you and be like,
Mhm.
hey, I know you're around the thing that you're trying to avoid now. Are you doing okay? Even
Mhm.
just having them included in that conversation may be
Mhm.
helpful.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree. I think so too. And I also something for me that I do when I'm stressed out at work and that maybe the problem can't necessarily be fixed in the moment is just going to the bathroom and taking a 5 minute just deep breathing in the bathroom because that's the one space that, you know,
Mhm.
no one's gonna bother you when you're in the bathroom, hopefully. But I agree. I like that one too. If you feel like you have that relationship with your boss or your coworkers, just asking for that support, not venting too much to them, but asking for that support. So, like, if he's a bartender, he or she is a bartender, maybe they could move to waiting tables instead of just being behind the bar 24/7. Um, but yeah,
Excuse me.
Yeah.
and maybe we might have maybe one more question.
It says, what if my family doesn't support my change? So I'm assuming a change over to a healthier habit, and I'm not sure exactly how that would look, but yeah, so it's important to have support around you. I think seeking out maybe sometimes some supports outside the family would be helpful, but maybe a good starting place would be to sit down and talk with your family about some of your struggles if you can, and how they can maybe lend some sort of support. And certainly seeking those outside supports are helpful. I also think, just seeking activities that bring you calmness, taking up an exercise routine, a yoga class, volunteering, um, any of those things that kind of get you outside of yourself. I think that you can develop that inner strength to support your own change. But yeah, I believe seeking out support from others is definitely important, and definitely your family is important um, as well. Maggie and Rebecca, what are your thoughts?
One thing I was thinking about is sometimes, especially like the people you live with, if it is your family members, they might be doing the same unhealthy coping skill that you're doing, and they might have done that same skill their whole lives, and you learned it. You might have even learned it from your family members. So if you start like just stop doing the thing that has been hurting you and your family for a long time, and they might not be ready to make that same change. It's hard to be around people who might not support you because they're still doing the same unhealthy coping skill. But I agree, like finding that support it might not can be that your family at that time because maybe they're still struggling with the same thing that you're trying to break. Um, but there's always an outlet somewhere. And it might take a while to find that, but there's always an outlet. And if you live in Tuscaloosa, you can always come to Tuscaloosa One Place. Our doors are always open. But what do you think, Rebecca?
That's such a good point that maybe they're struggling with the same thing and you may not even realize, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe you do know, and they're not ready to change. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard to be the first one in your family to break the cycle, but it's a really brave and resilient thing
Mm-hmm.
to do. And I think it's important because maybe your parents have, or anyone in your family, have wanted to change, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe they just don't have the skills or realize how to change, what
Mm-hmm.
options they have. So maybe you're helping them by leading the charge.
Yeah.
I think it's important to find somebody to be on your side, though. Absolutely
Mm-hmm.
find a friend or maybe a more distant family member,
Yeah. Yeah.
someone who's outside your home who can be a support for you and just cling on and do the best you can for as
Mm-hmm.
long as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all you really can do.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I like that. I like that getting other family members involved in activities. It always helps when, you have multiple people involved in a common goal of, a healthy coping skill or whatever you're trying to achieve. I do have one more question here. It is, does technology help or hurt our ability to cope? And I think this is a big topic nowadays because everybody has a phone in their pocket, and technology is extremely useful. We're using technology now to get the word out and to talk about these topics in our community, and it's awesome. Technology has a lot of possible positive uh, aspects to it. I know on my phone, I have a meditation app that I use quite a bit. If you have an iPhone, there's a journaling app actually built into the iPhone, and there's journaling apps I'm sure you can find on just about any device. There's educational resources, just a lot of things. I would caution. ChatGPT has become very popular. Uh, it's great for certain kinds of topics that may relate to coping skills and mental health, but you want to be careful about getting too involved with ChatGPT and not replacing ChatGPT with a counselor, for instance. Um, and the unhealthy aspects of technology are, of course, it's with us all the time. So that habit of picking up the phone all the time, it can be used as a form of escape if we don't want to deal with something in the moment. A lot of people have that habit of picking up the phone and checking out for a little bit or excessively. Some people use the phone so much that they avoid responsibilities or healthier coping skills. So it's a distraction that's just, very available. Should be asking yourself, am I using, technology with intention or am I using it automatically? So, yeah, intention would be seeking out some of those more supportive apps that are on your phone. Obviously, connecting with people is a good thing as well. But if you're using it automatically during stress, that's certainly not a healthy way to do it. Another recommendation is a lot of phones have timers on them. You can set time during the day when you get, that kind of mess around time on your phone where you can, check out for a minute or two, and that's fine. But when it becomes obsessive, excessive, then that can become a problem. What are your all's take on that?
Um, what do you think, Rebecca?
Yeah, I think you made some great points. It can definitely be tempting to
Mm-hmm.
use technology as an escape and less likely to use it as a resource, which is what
Mhm.
it could be. It could be a very positive thing,
Mhm.
but I think many people use it as an excuse to push their problems down,
Yeah.
either by texting your friends about stuff, which is not necessarily bad, but if you're using that and then avoiding things that need to get done in your life, you're letting the stress mount up in the background
Mhm.
and using technology to just distract yourself. And
Mhm.
that can be really harmful.
Mhm.
So I think it just needs to be used judiciously. Like you
Yeah.
just have to be very intentional and mindful about it, which is emotionally draining. So it's hard to do that.
Yeah. And another thing I was thinking about is, especially with TikTok nowadays and ChatGPT and like, Instagram, things like that, there's a lot of mental health advice going around.
Mm,
And, and John, we've all studied psychology. And so I'll find these mental health advice things that come up on my phone, and it looks very realistic. And I read it, I'm like, that goes against everything that I was taught in school. Like I don't think that's actually correct mental health advice, even though it's branded as it.
hmm
And so I've been having to, it's always good to fact check the advice that you're receiving on your phone. And like John was saying, AI is a helpful tool, but it can't replace a human. And so yeah, fact checking your resources and things like that. But
It's a great point.
that's what I would say to answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, what a great webinar. Great information. Thank you again for joining us for week 3 of TOPS Wellness Workshop Series. We appreciate your time, your attention, and your willingness to have important conversations about mental health and awareness and wellness. Today, we talked about healthy versus unhealthy coping skills and how the ways we respond to stress, emotions, and challenges can either support our well-being or make things more difficult over time. The main takeaway is that coping skills are something we all use, and with awareness and practice, we can choose strategies that help us feel more balanced, grounded, and supported. Before we close, I also want to briefly share a little about Tuscaloosa's One Place. TOP, as we call it, is a family resource center that works to strengthen families and connect individuals and families with helpful supports in our community. We offer a variety of programs and services, including parenting support, workforce development, counseling related services, volunteer opportunities, community outreach, and referrals to local resources. If you or someone you know could benefit from support, we encourage you to reach out to TOP and learn more about what may be available. This webinar series is open to anyone who is interested, so please feel free to share the webinar link with family, friends, coworkers, or others who may benefit from joining us. For more information about upcoming workshops and top services, please check out our social media or our website. Thank you again to Maggie and Rebecca for leading today's presentation, and thank you to everyone who attended. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.